Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film The Night Nurse from 1931, and this is continuing my quest to review as much of William Wellman's filmography as I possibly can within the next year. This is the film he directed right after The Public Enemy. Barbara Stanwyck, who's playing Laura Hart, who wants to be a nurse at a nursing school, but unfortunately is a high school dropout. The headmistress isn't going to let her in, but then she has a chance encounter with a doctor, and he does let her in, and she becomes fast friends with Bea Maloney, played by Joan Blondell, and they're great friends, and they have a dorm together, and they go out at night, and what a perfect pair of pre-code actresses with Joan Blondell and Barbara Stanwyck in the same film. I mean, that's just amazing. That was probably my favorite thing about this film, is that you have Joan Blondell and Barbara Stanwyck as best friends in this movie. I think that's awesome. That's like a pre-code dream come true. Barbara Stanwyck and Joan Blondell go through nursing school and graduate, and then they're made night nurses while they're in school, and then Barbara Stanwyck becomes a private nurse who is sent out to people's homes, and she goes to one house where these two children are very malnourished and very sick, and she kind of realizes it's a scam to get their trust funds by Clark Gable, who plays the chauffeur, who's an evil chauffeur, and a corrupt doctor at the hospital. This is a pre-code Wellman. I think it's one of Wellman's better periods, or at least that's what I'm finding as I'm going through it. But this film isn't really one of my favorites. I mean, maybe I made the mistake of watching this after I saw The Purchase Price, and I really like The Purchase Price, and I think this has a lot of similarities, not just because Barbara Stanwyck's in both, and they're both Wellman films. This film, much like The Purchase Price, the first part of the film is one thing, and then the rest of the film is like a completely different movie. And especially in this, I mean, this is a more rapid transition because they're really separate. In The Purchase Price, one bleeds into the other. It certainly establishes in a very working class, gritty way, which is very Wellman and very Warner's and pre-code of the time in the 30s. It's a working class story and how becoming a nurse really means something to her. Joan Blondell is a little more flippant about it, but it certainly actually means something to them. I have a friend who became like a school photographer. He does like yearbook stuff, and actually, like, he was telling me, you know, it's kind of stupid and corny, but it kind of meant something to him when he became a photographer, when they told him, like, you know, you're like a real professional photographer. And I think that really, it feeds into that kind of that feeling, you know, even though you think your job's dumb and it's not necessarily what you wanted to be doing when you were younger and you imagine growing up, but when you actually achieve it, it kind of means something. And I think that's a good thing to establish, so you see that she really cares about helping people, and with helping out these two kids and, you know, the evil that's going on with them. There's really no transition. It's like two different movies. It's like one is like nursing school and the other maybe is Night Nurse. I think the biggest problem with this, my problem with Night Nurse, is I saw The Purchase Price first, and I like The Purchase Price a lot, and I just don't have the same feeling about Night Nurse. I mean, I know they're different movies. People have recommended Night Nurse, and everyone I know who talked about Night Nurse has great things to say about it, but I don't like Night Nurse as much as Purchase Price, just because I think Purchase Price is a lot of things I love about Wellman. It's using some documentary footage, it's shot on location, and Night Nurse is Hollywood pre-code, shot in a studio kind of a movie, you know, early talkie kind of thing. I understand Wellman was a studio director and he had assignments, and so I'm a little disappointed that this isn't as much of his style of direction that I like. I think he's very inventive in the film, and he's really smart at coming up with ways to make things mean something and using the camera and when to not use the camera. A lot of the violence that Clark Gable's chauffeur character, when he hits Barbara Stanwyck's character earlier in the film, you don't see it, it's all off camera, but then later when you're getting closer to the climax, you are seeing it, and it makes it more shocking, you know. I mean, it was kind of, he just like throw her against the door. It was still shocking, and Wellman was smart that all the violence in this film is off screen, and so then when you actually see the violence, it means so much more because you've been withheld it throughout this film. He's really good at working with actresses. You know, for a guy who's very macho, big guy, he's good at working with Stanwyck and Joan Blondell. They're the real stars of the film, especially Stanwyck, but she was obviously a star. Clark Gable, who's in this is early Clark Gable. This is before he was really a star. He really comes in and has a commanding presence. Even when you see him in smaller roles, you're like, wow, that guy is going to be a movie star. Right when he walked in, regardless of the fact that he is Clark Gable, it really brought a lot of attention to him. He fills out the suit very well of the chauffeur. It's an interesting little like character, like a chauffeur, not a bootlegger, a chauffeur. Barbara Stanwyck's character is friends with the bootlegger, and he does do some pretty violent stuff, but Clark Gable is just a chauffeur. But he does give such a menacing performance, you almost think, like, maybe he's a little bit of something else. I don't know. Maybe he's a ringleader. He's not, but, you know, he gives off that aura. Apparently, James Cagney was originally going to play this role, but then he blew up and became a huge movie star after The Public Enemy, so he obviously didn't want to do such a small role. I don't hate this movie or anything like that, but it didn't really interest me. It wasn't as surprising as I've seen from a lot of Wellman's films. I still like Stanwyck a lot in the role. It's interesting how versatile she is in a lot of her Wellman stuff, and I love Joan Blondell has such a star quality about her. She has these huge eyes. I mean, Jesus, she's like an anime character, Joan Blondell. It's just like huge eyes, but I love watching Joan Blondell in anything. The whole second starving children thing, just I wasn't really that interested in. I could have just watched a film about them slowly becoming nurses. I could have seen a 72-minute film just about the first part, but unfortunately there was a second part, and this film does go through a lot of information for a 72-minute film. I don't want to dissuade you. I think if you're into Stanwyck, you're into this period, you're not going to be like, oh, that was awful. It's all right, but I just don't have very much love for it. I don't really ever want to see it again, you know. But it was, I guess, a semi-interesting movie. So if you have seen Night Nurse and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. And the next film I'll be reviewing in William Wellman's filmography will be the film So Big. The videos are kind of coming out a little erratically just because I'm going kind of through a transition right now, and I'll explain later in an info video when that's all settled. But that will be the next video. I do not know when it's going to go up. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in a week, we'll see. But when it goes up, for at least the next video in my Wellman series will be So Big.